Hashtag Justice Thursdays, where we have conversations about the justice sector, how easy and convenient it is for us to access justice in this country. These are the conversations that we have. Our guest today is from the Kenya Prison Service, and this is Mundos Munyewe, the Deputy Commissioner General of Prisons. Florence Omundi joins us in the studio. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Eric.
Good to have you in the show. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. We call that the hot seat, but because wewe ni mkubwa, madam, hiyo kiti tunaomba tuweke joto kidogo.
Thank
madam.
you. Asante sana.
You know, no, there are people now who, do you know me?
Yes.
My sister.
Yes.
Is the Deputy
My first cousin.
Commissioner General.
In fact, I have to ask this question. When you're a madam, so are you now also Madam Afande?
Yes.
Okay.
So it goes with Madam Afande.
Yes, don't just say Afande. It's Madam Afande.
Madam Afande.
They like calling you sir.
Oh, no, they do not.
Because in this space, they are used to have sir.
They used to men.
Yes.
May I ask, when they do call you sir, how do you respond?
You respond normally, say thank you.
You basically just acknowledge and move on.
You
Yes.
understand?
Because you know
Yes,
they've
you
also just
understand.
realized their mistake. Soon after they said sir, and now they know they can't just come back to the boss and say, Madam.
Madam, I'm sorry, sir.
Florence Omundi is the first female Deputy General Commissioner of the prisons in Kenya's history. So we basically have somebody who has shattered that glass ceiling, and it's an honor to have you. How long have you worked with the prison service?
I have worked for close to 35 years. Before you were born, I was in the Kenya Prison Service.
Well, not me, but yeah. Before many people were born.
Eric, take advantage of this thing. You can change your ID.
I haven't yet. Haraka.
Yes, you can be 34, surely.
So you've risen through the ranks of the prison up to this level now, which is the second highest, I believe.
Yes.
What's the
Precisely.
structure of the prison service? So above you, how many people?
The Kenya Prison Service has the Commissioner General of Prisons, the retired Brigadier Warioba currently, then has a Florence Omundi Momanyi.
Love it.
Yes, mother and wife,
Huh?
proudly Kenyan, born in Kisii, bred there, traveled all over the world. Thank you.
How did you arrive at this job? I mean, of all the jobs that one could have done in Kenya.
By default.
Okay.
That is by default.
Please tell us a little bit about it.
After university, actually before university, we were meant to fill in the Public Service Commission forms to get a job. And that time, the Moi era wanted to place people. It was basically for placement. And I got 3 places, to be a DO, to be a chief officer, and to be a labor officer too. And the first one was the chief officer, and we were supposed to go to Tatu. I went there not knowing what was in store for me, and I was locked up, and I've stayed on since.
That was the chief officer's job.
Yes. I was just excited to go. You know, my friends were like, you're going to be a locational chief? You'll be pouring changa? I said, yes. So I went to find out what is this thing.
Yeah.
And once you get into a camp, a military camp or whatever, they will take your fingerprints. Once that is done, you enter. They'll give you a uniform. They gave me some funny uniform, a very small skirt, and a top which had been used by somebody, and got into the barrack. And once you are in there, they say when you resign or when you take off, you'll be put in for 6 months. And I didn't want to be put in for 6 months because in any case, the gate was locked anyway. I didn't know what I was in for, but I've enjoyed the journey all the same.
So I presume that by the time you get into this position of Deputy Commissioner General, you've also then headed some prisons.
Yes,
What do you call the person who's in charge of a prison?
an officer in charge.
Okay. How many prisons have you been officer in charge of?
I've been an officer in charge of only 2 stations. Because from the moment I entered, you realize I entered as a chief officer after university, and I was picked as a good material for office work. And when I went to work in Shimolatewa after Nyeri, His Excellency Moi, then the president, during the show, identified me as good material that can actually articulate issues of the Kenya Prison Service. And from there, then I was given a Commonwealth scholarship to go to the United Kingdom for a master's program. And after that, I came and I joined the administration. So I've basically moved from administration, a lecturer at the Staff Training College, back in various sections and directorates in the Kenya Prison Service, including administration. I've been in logistics before. I've been a PA to the Commissioner of Prisons before. I have also worked as a Director Gender. That is the longest that I've been. I worked as Director Gender for 10 years. Before now I landed where I am. Yes.
We've invited you here because we want to talk about the plight of children who accompany their mothers when their mothers are put into prison. We have had conversations of this nature before. A couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation with the founder and head of an organization called Clean Start. She herself had been incarcerated and she went into prison with her child. And she told us about the stories of what children go through, those young people who are not the ones who've been sent to prison by the system, but they just end up there because they have to accompany their mothers. I'm sure you've encountered some such cases. Just tell us your own experience and encounter of the children who are incarcerated with their parents.
Thank you. As of today, we have 233 children accompanying their incarcerated mothers. These are innocent victims of crime. The only crime that they've committed is that they need their mothers. Either they're in the womb or they're suckling. You know, they're at that stage when they need their mothers, and their mothers have found themselves at the wrong side of the law. So this sentence of their mothers also becomes the sentence of the children who accompany them to prison. And my first encounter was in Nyeri. I got there. The first thing that shocked me was a woman in a pink dress, just a dress. I thought this was not very good, because how can a woman just wear a straight dress like a bag? Then I entered the prison and I saw babies. First, I didn't understand what the babies were doing there until I was told that these are children who have accompanied their imprisoned mothers. Well, these children find themselves there because sometimes when the mothers commit a crime or when they are arrested, they are expecting. So what happens is that you cannot separate the mother from the child or the child from the mother, because the child is in the mother. And therefore, this mother comes without even the courts realizing that they've actually convicted and sentenced 2 or even 3 people in case the mother is carrying twins or quadruplets. So they will land in prison and they are there. So what I'm saying is that we also do not prepare to meet the children because they are sometimes not seen. They are those unseen, innocent victims of crime. They come without a warrant, because for somebody to be in prison, they must have an order, a committal warrant. These children don't have any. Actually, you never even see them in court. You'll see them at the prison gate. Sometimes they come after the mother has been brought to prison, and the following day the child will be brought. So it was shocking for me.
Commissioner, I'm listening to you, and I'm trying to picture this situation, having visited prisons before. And I'm thinking, does the prison structure actually consider accommodating children? Is there something within the structure of the prisons that actually takes care of children, so that should children arrive with their mothers or the mothers arrive when they're expectant?
Thank you, Latif. Yes, the prisons is prepared to receive these children, only that you are not sure how many children you are receiving, because like I've said, sometimes the child is in the mother. So you wake up in the morning, you slept with 10 and you have 11 or 12 in the morning. which means then that during the night, some arrangements must have been made. But we have facilities to take care of children in the prisons.
Could you walk us through these facilities and explain to us, beginning with an expectant mother when she delivers, how you go to the point where maybe children are now 1 or 2 years old and so forth?
Yes, the prisons department is in the State Department for Correctional Services in the Ministry of Interior. We have 134 penal institutions in the country. Out of these, 43 are female institutions that have a child, so to say. We have 33 which are gazetted. We also have 6 which are wings. A wing means that it is a prison that has children. It is for women, but it's under the management of a male institution. And therefore, these ones, they are just a small wing, a small section within the male institution. But it's normally separate from the main male prison. And these prisons are spread across the country. The only one that we have that is fully independent and autonomous from any male autonomy is the Langata Maximum Women Prison. Yeah. And this one is fully furnished. It fully takes care of the children. It has a health facility. It has child caregivers. It has a state-of-the-art Montessori-based daycare center. We will talk about this later, I think. And then we have their own kitchenette to prepare their meals. And they have antenatal and postnatal care. This is actually across all the prisons that we have in the country.
Okay. So, I mean, from what you're saying, Commissioner, there are arrangements that have been made for these children.
Sure.
But you've also said that there's no committal warrant for children. The committal warrant is on the mother who comes in. So if there's no committal warrant, do we go ahead to say then there is no provision by law for these children? And if these arrangements have been made, is it a quasi-arrangement or is it something that has come about later?
Thank you. The Prisons Act, Cap 90, Section 34, subsection 4, provides for children below the age of 4 years accompanying their mothers in prison, and the law states that they will be taken care of at public expense.
Okay.
So that statement allows for children to be in there. But a lot of progress has been made such that now for a child to be in prison, they have a court order. Yes. So that then we don't become a conduit maybe for trafficking of children, so that we are able to account for every child who is in our institution. So we have a court order. And now we have also developed with the judiciary, the National Council for Administration of Justice, Special Task Force for Children Matters. We now have a P&C, Child Care and Protection file form for the child. It will be filled so that this is a child in need of care and protection, and we have this form which then takes care of the child.
Actually, just mentioning it and saying that there is now a court order that accompanies every child that comes to prison, and saying that also helps us to avoid cases of child trafficking. It just raises the red flag.
Yeah.
Have there been cases such as those where you have gotten to a point as the prison service management questioned the authenticity of some of the children who are accompanying so-called parents?
Yes, we have. We've had cases where a mother will come with a child, and you feel like the child is not quite comfortable. We have welfare officers within the prison service, but we also work closely with the other child-based agencies in the country, like the Children's Department, probation and all this, and they will go and do now an inquiry to find out does this child belong to the mother Yes, because you see some child are brought in while the mother is with us, and this is why it was necessary for a P&C form to be filled and even to have a court order. Right now, you cannot have a child leave prison, even to the father, until we have a court order. Yes.
We've also seen, Commissioner, that from the statistics we've seen and heard, that the majority of the women who are in prison today with their children are actually there for cases that could have been sorted out in a different manner, like we say.
Yes.
Are not necessarily your hardened criminal kind of cases. They are actually cases that are in prison for things like lack of, bail payment, lack of legal representation, and so they're there until their case can be heard. Is there something that can be done to see that these women are actually not in the prison system, but that something else can be done so that we avoid the situations whereby they have to be incarcerated with their children? And are you part of this conversation?
Yes. Thank you. Was it Udo? Well,
Undu.
Undu.
Yes.
I think I should write it.
I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just
No, you know.
let your tongue roll over the name as you.
yes.
Yes.
Undu.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. That is actually quite interesting because we have the task force for children matters. It was previously headed by the Chief Justice herself. And when she became Chief Justice, then it's being headed by Justice Teresia Madheka. The membership is drawn from all the child agencies like the Kenya Prison Service, the Children's Service, police, all of them, judiciary and all the others, and even from the civil society. This is a gazetted task force. The task force has achieved a lot. And part of what the task force has achieved is what you are alluding to this morning. And one of the big steps taken is that it's pushed the conversation to another level, such that now we have the task force organizing service weeks. Yeah, in the service weeks, they fast track children cases, and for us, they fast track cases of mothers who have children. And they also have gone ahead and done a lot of sensitization on alternative dispute resolution, so that some cases for these women who are really petty offenders can be handled even outside the court. They also do give non-custodial sentences for some of these women. So a lot has been done, and they're also pushing the budgeting a program for children in the different institutions. And even right now, the Kenya Prison Service has made a tremendous step. We are working on a policy on children accompanying their mothers in prison, or a policy on mothers who have children in prison accompanying them. These are tremendous steps to address those gaps, the gaps that then would alleviate the pain of people serving sentences for very petty offenses. Yeah. A lot is being done. Yeah.
Florence Omundi Momanyi, she's the Deputy Commissioner General of the Kenya Prison Service, talking about protecting the rights of children who are accompanied imprisoned mothers. Madam Commissioner, before we took the break, you told us that there's a lot that's being done by the National Council for the Administration of Justice, the Prison Service itself, and other arms in seeing how best to avoid the children getting into the prisons in the first place. Even as we talk about then protecting those that end up in prison. One of those is making sure that as much as possible, the justice system shall try and deal with petty offenders in a different manner. Is that being put in practice, or is it still just on paper?
Thank you, Eric. The justice system is very sensitive to the needs of children, and especially the children accompanying their mothers. And the mothers who have children are not handled just like any other ordinary person, because they have needs which are very keen and very key to every Kenyan and to everybody who has the interest of children at heart. And therefore, the judiciary has gone out of the way to sensitize actually the whole of the criminal justice system and other actors on why it is important not to hold mothers who have children in prison. So yes, it's happening, and they are looking also at the bail and bond so that the bonds are affordable to these women. And I know that other stakeholders also come on board to help pay bails and bonds for these women, even fines actually for the women, so that they spend their time outside. Thank you.
Can you play an advisory role? And I'm just because I may not understand the process of the relationship then between Kenya prisons and the capacity in which you sit, the judiciary, and those other processes.
Prosecutor and the police.
Can you play an advisory role because of what you see on a daily basis? It cannot be pretty, right? I mean, seeing and experiencing young children in the system in their formative years, right, for however long it takes. So can you play an advisory role beyond getting well wishers to pay bail and bond, to actually go as far as saying, look, petty offenders, can we make sure that they don't step in here even one day? Especially because of these children that we are looking at that they would likely have. And if you have established that they do have young children, can we even say, let's advise and let's work together here to say that let's not even get to the point whereby they're paying bail and bond. Let's look at it and say, can they do community service, for example? Can they do something else that would then remove the entire possibility of them having to step in here? I'm almost sure, if I can even speak for you, that you would prefer a situation where children were not in prison.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We actually have the Court Users Committee, and we are a member of the Court Users Committee. The Court Users Committee brings on board all the children justice players in the country, and this is where you have this conversation on how do we then handle cases that affect children, and that is their mothers and all this, and therefore it's a conversation that is on. We have a Court Users Committee, we have the NCAJ Task Force for Children, and in this we all sit there. I'm a member, and the prisons in the country are also members. They also attend the CUCs all over the country. Yeah.
What would you prefer, Madam Commissioner? What would you prefer?
Well, I would prefer that children do not enter prisons at all. Prison is not for children. However, because there are situations where we may not avoid this, like where a woman is brought in and she's expecting, where the environment at home is so bad that the child really is better in prison with the mother, we need these children to bond with their mothers. There's trauma in there, yes, but there's even more trauma outside because you are dealing with the poor women coming sometimes from the informal settlements, from very abusive homes, and therefore you're thinking in terms of how do you leave this child? So there are situations where we cannot avoid a child being in a penal institution with the mother. However, while they are there, we make sure that the best interest of the child gets attended. Yes, you see there are also in international conventions. We have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the African Charter for the Right and the Welfare of the Child. We also have the national, like the Constitution of Kenya, Article 91. And therefore these ones have also clearly come out and stipulated on how then do you handle a child who may have found themselves in prison somehow. Yes, I mean, we can't totally avoid it, but we are saying that the best place for a child is not prison. No. It is not prison. Prison is not for children. But however, should the child find themselves there, there are still mechanisms, there are still steps that have been taken. Measures have been put in place to adequately address their issues.
Are those measures in place, Madam Commissioner? When we spoke to Teresa Njoroge of Clean Start, she was giving us, examples of where children go into prison accompanying their mothers and the trauma lives with them. Even when they come out of prison, they still get affected. She was telling us about her own daughter, whenever she sees the kind of prison uniform, that is a trigger to the trauma that she went through. do you give them psychosocial support, these children, as they are growing up in the prison? How are you taking care of them as they grow up psychosocially?
Thank you. Initially, these children just landed there. But with time, we have now come up with mechanisms of addressing those traumatic experiences, and the other challenges that may affect the children because even of the environment itself, like I've said, is not for children. Remember, prisons are closed institutions. Children grow up in free environments where they run up and down and mix with the children. Remember, prisons is for grown-ups. So when you have a child with grown-ups who have committed offenses, you can be sure that the children will be affected. But we have now employed early children development and education teachers. We have ECD teachers in our facilities. We have employed also child experts. We have social workers. And we are also working with the other partners to ensure that these children get psychosocial support. And like I've said, we are also working on a policy to address some of those issues. Actually, most of them. The policy is in progress, and I'm sure that by March, the policy will have come out so that then we have a way of addressing these issues officially, and which is also embedded in law.
Do the children get an opportunity to get out of prison at any point, during this time, get out of prison, accompanied by social workers and their ECD teachers, to go to other places where they can see that there is environment outside of prison for purposes of when they need to be reintegrated into society?
Yes, thank you very much. One, in the daycare centers that I mentioned earlier are within the prison compounds, but not within the confines of the prison facility itself. So every morning, these children are taken out of the prison to the daycare center. And in the daycare centers, they live and mix with other children, or they will stay with, they will stay with their caregivers, but they walk around. But we also have instances where we take these children to the orphanage, like in Langata. In Mombasa, one time we took them to town. Mm-hmm. That was not a good experience.
Why?
The children didn't understand. They were actually scared. They saw too much space, too much sunshine, too many people, and the children were even feeling traumatized because they have not been used to too much noise.
Okay.
Out there was too much noise. But now we deliberately make an effort to ensure that these children are taken outside so that they can interact with the outside world with a view to preparing them for reintegration, because they'll definitely get out. And this is also addressed in the policy. Yeah.
Schooling for the children. You mentioned ECD, early childhood learning. That, I think, is a good thing, but it is a structure within the prison confines.
Yes.
Since it's a schooling environment, do they have opportunity to mix with other students who are perhaps in other learning institutions other than within the confines of the...
Yes. Actually, the daycare centers and the nursery schools are not within the prison walls. They are in the larger prison compound, and some are even outside. If you go to Kakamega, for example, the children are taken to a school outside the prison. Mm-hmm. If you go to Meru, you'll also experience the same, because remember, our children are not enough. The numbers are not enough to allow us have a school. However, a child starts developing from the womb. This is in the Constitution also. Life starts at 0. So this child starts learning right from the womb. Immediately it is born, the child gets to learn, to prepare themselves for the early schooling. If it doesn't start at that time, you lose a stage. And I'm sure this is what Teresa was alluding to. This is what she experienced, because you see, this child misses a stage. A stage where they play, where they're children. Children should be allowed to be children. So they actually go out. They go to school with other children outside. In Langata, Previously, the nursery school, it used to be called nursery school. These days, they call them kindergartens. They are outside. So we take the children who are like 3.5, 3 to 4 to the school outside. Yes, so that they can mix with the other children.
Does anything ever show? I mean, it sounds like maybe the answer would be obvious, but does anything ever show on the record of this child after having been in this in a prison, going through school, later on in life, that they, spent their formative years here? Does it ever show on their record in any shape or form?
Oh, no. That is an offense. The law is very clear, the Children's Act 2001, that the record, the birth certificate should not indicate that the child was born in prison. Actually, even your own child, the birth certificate does not indicate that they were born in the kitchen. It does not indicate that they were born in the house. It indicates that maybe they were born in Nairobi, in Nairobi hospital. Yes. So even for these children, it does not indicate that they were born in prison. The law requires that even when they are going to school in prison, their certificate will not indicate that.
Okay,
it's very clear. It's legal.
It will not indicate which institution they went to school.
No.
Okay.
Just a school, because our schools are registered as just schools, not prison schools, but they're just registered as schools. Yes.
Your service, the prison service, is a rehabilitative and correctional facility. I'm assuming that also in the law, you are mandated to think about rehabilitating and reintegrating your customers, so to speak, back to society. Now, these children are also part of those customers. Is there a program on how to reintegrate them back into society? Is there any follow-up that you are mandated to have once you have released somebody from prison? They've gone back into society, to follow up and make sure that they are being reintegrated peacefully?
Thank you, Eric. Reintegration starts right from conviction. When they get into our facility, one thing that we do is that we allow them to have visits. The father, the other siblings at home will come and visit the mother in prison, so that then the bonding is maintained. We have open days. We have what are they called? We have open days. We have what are these days called? I will just remember what the days are called. When we have children, remote parenting. We have remote parenting days. This is a Chinese concept that's now borrowed here. And in this remote parenting day, the prison organizes an open day whereby the family members will come to prison and visit the mother, bringing in the children who are left at home, yes, so that they can then be able to bond with the one inside the prison. Even if the mother does not have a child in prison, her children will be brought in so that she can look at the progress, the school progress. They can share.
How many times a year does this happen?
Well, it depends on how the station is able to organize themselves and how busy they are. Some of the stations, like Langata, are quite busy, but they can organize. It's open. Yes, it's open.
So there's no set weekly, monthly, no.
No. It's not like weekly, monthly, but it depends on how, because you see, it's not really embedded in law yet. We are working on it. Is part of what we are addressing in the policy. Yes. So that once then it's in the policy, we can say, can we have open days or remote parenting days, maybe quarterly? Can we? But it's open. It's open. We don't normally stop a parent who wants to come to prison to see a child or a sibling.
So reintegration begins, like you said,
begins at that point.
From sentencing.
Yes, from sentencing.
When they come into the facility and throughout their stay in the facility.
Yes.
Now you've released them. Do you continue?
When we've released them, before releasing them, we have to ensure that they are where they will go. Because you don't just release a child if the mother is in prison. Remember, when they attain 4 years of age, then we release them. Whether the mother has been released or not, the child will have to leave our facility on attaining 4 years of age. Now, if the mother is with us, then it means that it's incumbent on us to visit this child. Because remember, we are holding the mother. So we must send our welfare officers to ensure that the child is okay. In fact, we are thinking of taking photographs every month because children change. And if a mother is serving like a life sentence and the child was born while she was with us, you can imagine that the child might even change, and the mother may not be able to recognize this child when they are grown up. So there's a deliberate effort to ensure that the mother and the child are united. They are linked somehow. The child can be brought to prison, and then they will be able to visit their mothers. And that is now that is now the reintegration part that we do, the follow-up. Yes, that is the follow-up that we do, because remember, the mother is with us.
So what is this thing that you'll do to check where the child is going? This child is approaching 4 years old.
Yes.
We are going to release them back to society. What do you check?
What we do is that we check, do they have a relative, a next of kin, who can take care of this child? If we don't have a next of kin or a relative or anybody who can take care of this child, then what we do is that we will give the child to a children's home, a child institution, yes, a CCI, a children care institution. And while the child is here, we monitor and we follow up, because this is still our child as long as the mother is with us. So that is the link. The link is the mother, actually. And whichever comes first. If the child attains 4 years of age and they have been handed over to a relative, good. But if the child attains 4 years of age and they're still stuck with us, we've not been able to make any effort, or we've not managed to trace the next of kin, then the child will definitely be taken to a home. Yes. And even homes are still not really encouraged. The government is having conversation on fostering. Yeah, foster parenting. I know that you are aware of this. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of funding, looking at the situation, in terms of funding, especially for caring for these children, is it enough? Because we are still told, Madam Commissioner, of donations being made of things like diapers and baby food and formula. And funding clearly is not enough.
Sure.
And we even have, bless their hearts, prison officers who are, giving out of their own pocket to help these children. How or what is the situation like, and how can it be improved, made better, knowing that there is this population of children in prison?
Thank you. Actually, like I stated at the very beginning, this child comes in and it's like there is really no document, that brings in the child until now, when we now have this court order. And the funding for the children is not adequate. And this is why it was necessary for us to come up with a policy, so that then this policy will help us now get funding for these children. Remember, prisons is not for children. Like I said, it is for offenders. So it is anticipated that no children will be brought in. And when they find themselves in our place, and remember I said you wake up in the morning and a child has been born. A child will even been born with special needs. And therefore, it then means that even that budgeting is really not done, because it's assumed that children are not in prison. Prisons are for grown-ups who have done offenses. And you see, society is very punitive, by the way. The society assumes that this woman or this man should be punished and even punished until they drop dead. They're forgetting that these are mothers. They're forgetting that these are mothers, even with a child in prison. And therefore, it is my prayer that we really get adequate funding for children. But the NCAJ has done, with a consultant, has done a budgeting for children in prisons. And that document has been worked on, budgeting for children in all institutions, actually not only in prisons. And there's a very good document that has been done. They've gone round and they've done a survey on how much do we need per child? How much space do we need per child? Like now, even in the policy, we are saying we have small facilities for children, we have medium, and we have large. We need playgrounds, we need all this. We've come up with a raft of items that we need, even budget items that will have to be addressed for these children to be adequately taken care of, because you see the Constitution recognizes every child as a child with rights, and that they have that inherent dignity as children of this world, as children of Kenya. And therefore, it's really important that they get adequate funding, whether they are there by default or not. Those children are there by right because their mothers are with us.
In the meantime, what's happening?
In the meantime, we have The government gives us money for the children. It is not enough.
Is it how does the money come? Is it capitation X amount per child?
Yes, it's X amount per child.
And how much is that per child? And what does it cater for?
We have 400. Actually, what like for food for the child is double that of the grown up, 420, while it's 210 or 220 for the grown up.
Per
It
day.
is-
Per what?
Yes, per day, per
Okay.
day. So it's not like it's so little, really. But the reason why people come in to give these diapers and whatever is because of what we've talked about, reintegration. We are trying to tell Kenyans, this is your child held here with us. Can you also, step in? Can you also give a hand? Can you also be part of the system that rehabilitates the mother and reintegrates the child? It's important that every Kenyan carries that responsibility, feels duty bound also to take care of a child who is with the mother, because you see, crime is committed out there, not in prison. Therefore, if the mother commits a crime and you Kenyans decide that the mother will have to spend time in prison, can you also come and support us, take care of this child? We are in it with all of us, everybody, including me and you,
You
all
know,
the Kenyans.
prisons, we know this. I mean, we are not even putting you on the spot here. We know these are prisons in Kenya are congested. Okay? Your holding capacity versus the number of people that you have in prisons currently do not match.
Yes, sure.
That is the same case even for the women prisons. And you've told us we have 33 female prisons and some 6 wings that are in a male prison, but then accommodating women. Now, the children in these facilities, do they have, for example, just the basics of accommodation? Do they have special accommodation? Do they have baby cots? Do the mothers who are here with a young child, a 1-year-old, do they sleep in a separate room? Is there any kind of special treatment that is given to a mother who's nursing a child? Okay, to the child who's being nursed by a mother.
Thank you, Eric. Actually, every prison has a child facility. Some are very basic items, they are very basic, but some are very well equipped. But in all the female prisons, there are beds and mattresses. In all the female institutions in this country, wherever there's a child, there's a unit for taking care of the child, for mother and child unit. They are not mixed with the others. And remember, we only have like 3,000 female inmates. Yeah, in a population of 50, like today we have almost 54,000, 53,700 and I think 43 today. And we have only 233 children. Langata, which is the biggest, accommodates 60, but we have 27 today. So some of them have 2, some have 3. You can imagine that 233 in 43 institutions. It's not a very big number. Yeah, the women are not so many actually, and the women are not mixed with the men. There's congestion, yes, but the children are handled separately. Yes.
Madam, we want to thank you very much for joining us today. Florence Omundi Momanyi is the Deputy Commissioner General of the Kenya Prison Service. She has been with us this morning, Justice Thursdays, to talk about protecting the rights of children who are accompanying imprisoned mothers. There's a comment here from Innocence Kenya who says, actually, Madam Commissioner, the law under the Persons Deprived of Liberty Act 2014 provides for 4 open days per year for prisons. Right? So already we have the 4 open days where the children can come and visit. But asante sana for coming to share all this information with us. We are looking forward to having you again soon, and let's talk about the progress that has been made, especially when that policy is ready. Let's discuss it and let's subject it to public participation.
Thank you very much, Eric. It was a pleasure being here.